I tell you, I'd never get tired of that cool theme music. Never get tired of that cool theme music.
Isn't it the coolest theme music? I mean, I feel like I'm about to go to war every time.
Yeah, I'm
open one of
ready.
these
Like
shows.
this. I don't know what I'm allowed to say on this network. Never mind. I'm not going to say it. But there was a famous battle in Game of Thrones, and it gives those vibes 100%.
Fair enough. So today we're going to be reviewing the Southeast Division. We're going to go team by team, break down player by player, and I have Terrell Furman here with me, and then hopefully Steezy Smith to join us shortly. The first team we're going to start off with is the Washington Wizards. And what do you think about their fantasy outlook this season, Terrell?
I think the Wizards actually have more fantasy output than people want to give them credit for. And it's because I think that they're going to be in probably 300-point games for the entirety of the season. Like, I don't think anybody on this team is committing to defense. I don't think anybody on this team is going to be trying to play defense. I think this Wizards team is going to go out there and probably let the other team score 120 points. And you're going to get those nights where even though they might not get to 120 and win the game, they'll probably be at 110, 100. Like, they're going to put up some points here. Jordan Poole is going to be his coming out party as the main guy on the offense. Kyle Kuzma's back. They bring in Tyus Jones. I think that there's a lot more fantasy output on this team than a lot of other teams in the league.
Well, that's like in football where the bad teams that are always throwing at the end of games have great fantasy outputs, and that's exactly how this translates into the NBA.
Garbage time, Jared Goff. Garbage time, Jared Goff with those Rams, man.
You know what? That's a nice redemption arc. He was a garbage pail kid, and now he's an actual quarterback, which is a beautiful thing. So let's start off. Let's start with Kyle Kuzma. What are your thoughts on his season coming up, and what do you think? What do you think about his output?
I think Kyle Kuzma's season is actually can translate pretty closely to where he's been for the past year or two, really his whole time here in Washington. Whereas he's going to have somebody else that's probably going to be the guy. Like, more than likely, Jordan Poole is the guy in this offense. But Kyle Kuzma is an amazing number two, and he's a really, really good number two in a non-championship contending level team. And so he's a gifted scorer. He's going to be able to score on all three levels. I think that what he adds rebounding the basketball as well. And Kyle Kuzma can get into these stretches where he can just start stacking double doubles. That does a lot for your fantasy points. And so I think Kyle Kuzma is somebody that people are sleeping on a little bit later in drafts. And they understand that he's a sleeper and he's a player that has value compared to where his ADP is, that he's probably going to outperform his ADP as long as he stays healthy.
Fair enough. And Steezy, what do you think about Kyle Kuzma's outlook this season?
Man, first of all, what's up, y'all? Long time no see. Kyle Kuzma. Kyle Kuzma, man, I love Kyle Kuzma in fantasy this year, and in real life as well. Like you guys were talking about, he's getting drafted, in the later rounds, and I just feel like he's definitely an easy choice to outperform his ADP. We saw what he did in Washington last year as he was kind of like a semi-number one in the games that Kristaps Porzingis missed, because although he did turn in, one of his more healthy seasons in recent memory, he still missed a good chunk of games. And so in those games that he missed, Kyle Kuzma looked decent, at least statistically, because as far as winning basketball games, him as a number one option, you're probably not going to go too far, and that's respectfully said. And so I think with what he's able to do, just filling up the stat sheet. I mean, last year we saw him average close to 4 assists per game. The year before that, another season in which he averaged almost 4 assists per game. I think he's kind of a sneaky double type option. With Jordan Poole now the de facto number one, I can still see him succeeding as the de facto number two. He'll have his nights in which he can look like that number one, but as far as filling up the stat sheet, as far as his ADP, I love him in fantasy this year.
I want to play a little ADP game, which is Steezy. And
let's play.
So I'm going to take some people that are around same position, same portion of ADP. We have Kyle Kuzma or Jalen Williams for OKC.
Man, see, I'm going to have to I'll still rock with Kuzma here just because I really feel like with a Wizards team that's probably not going to go anywhere this year. I mean, why not let your younger guys play? Kyle Kuzma's still somewhat young. And then with Oklahoma City Thunder, you have a Chet Holmgren coming in who's going to take up a lot of that usage. I know there's still room for Jalen Williams. Wait, are we talking about the wing or the center? Because it's two.
The wing.
Williams. The wing. Oh, I was going to talk about the center. But no, yeah, I'd still take Kuzma just because I think with the Chet Holmgren coming in, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, obviously, as we know, he could be an MVP candidate if the Thunder start winning some basketball games, which I think they can do with the Chet Holmgren now in town, especially. And so, while I like what he did last year, Jalen Williams, he was definitely a candidate to win Rookie of the Year. He was filling up the
Mhm.
stat sheet, outperformed expectations. I just feel like with the Shea still there, Chet coming in, his usage will kind of come down. He's better in real life than he is in fantasy.
All right, let's do Kyle Kuzma or Josh Hart.
I still might have to rock with Kyle Kuzma. Again, Josh Hart, he's
Yeah.
another guy that I like more so in real life than I do in fantasy.
Yeah, I like Kyle Kuzma too. I think he's going to do more scoring. While I think Josh Hart is
Yeah.
going to do everything else, I think that you're going to get a bunch of 20-point games from Kyle Kuzma in addition to the rebounds and maybe a few assists here or there. So let's do one more person that's around this same tier, and I want to make it a little bit tougher for you. Kyle Kuzma or his former teammate Brandon Ingram.
Oh, boy. I said this on the NBA draft show, Rail, that we were on, and I talked about how this is a make or break year for Brandon Ingram and Zion Williamson. And they
Yeah.
have a lot of talent. Like, this team should be a playoff team. And it's hard to trust them just because BI himself has also missed a ton of games. But because this is a make or break year, he declined that extension offer from the Pelicans. I think he has a huge year. And when it comes to talent, I think in real life he's a better player than a Kyle Kuzma. And as far as fantasy, maybe he doesn't fill out the rest of the stat sheet like a Kyle Kuzma, but he does and will score more points. And so it's close, but give me BI here.
All right.
And let's move on to the next player on the Wizards. What about Tyus Jones, Terrell? What are your thoughts?
I think Tyus Jones is a sneaky late option at guard because while I don't expect him to do a bunch of scoring for this team, I think the assists are going to be up. And if there's anybody that's going to take defense serious on this team, it might be Tyus Jones because, I mean, Tyus Jones could see himself out the league if he isn't playing defense. He just doesn't have, that star power, that ability like as a Jordan Poole does have, where Jordan Poole can go out there and give you 25 points and not play defense. So I think that Tyus Jones here, you're probably looking for him to fill out the assist stat sheet more, probably hoping for a bunch of double doubles, honestly. And maybe you get something like that. But I do think that Tyus Jones assists, that's a betting prop that I'm going to be looking at over the course of the season because I think playing alongside Jordan Poole and Kyle Kuzma, he can rack up a bunch of assists. But he's still a pretty late option for me at guard.
Yeah, there's not too much upside for Tyus Jones. Again, and I'm going to be saying this a lot throughout the year. He's a lot better in real life than he is in fantasy. I think what he does in real life for this basketball team is that he adds a sense of stability. Just because when you have a Jordan Poole, when you have a Kyle Kuzma, you have these young guys kind of flying all over the place. You need a point guard that's going to set the table, that's going to slow the pace down, that's going to kind of keep these guys in order. So if you play like in a category, type of league and turnovers are involved, Tyus Jones is a good bet not to turn the ball over while also providing a steady source and a steady dose of assists. And so from that perspective and going back to what Ro was saying, he's definitely a flyer in the later rounds. But as far as upside, there's not too much.
Okay, so let's go back to the main guy that you guys have been hitting on, but avoiding Jordan Poole. What do you guys see from Jordan Poole, and what do you like about him?
Man, Jordan Poole gonna have his own section in Rose Bar, man. He's gonna have his own. He took over the Bradley Beal section in Rose Bar. He's gonna be in Rose Bar after dropping 30 every given night, just lit, popping bottles, doing whatever. Oh man, this is the Jordan Poole coming out party. I mean, the narrative is there, the talent is there. He got outed from this Golden State team, and a lot of the blame was put on him. Where you could say that it was like he deserved some blame, but it really wasn't all him. Like it really isn't all him. But he did deserve some blame for how he played in those playoffs, and it just feels like the perfect redemption arc. You get outcasted into the where's the place in Lion King where they said, "Here are the Pride Lands.
Oh, I know what
Everything
you're
the light
talking about.
touches belongs to us." And then those are the graveyards. Don't ever go there. And they just send him off to Washington and for his career to die. Like, this is Jordan Poole's redemption arc, man. And he actually does know people on this side of coast. Like, I know he has some people, some friends and some stuff on this side of coast. So I think they'll be around. They'll support him. And he's going to have a great season. He's going to score a bunch. And I think that in the beginning of the season, we'll be talking about him, potentially leading the league in scoring. I think he's going to fall off at some
Oh,
point during the season, but I think he's going to get to a red hot start, and he's going to be like Trae Young. Trae Young normally leads the league in scoring for like the first 3 weeks, and then he falls off. I think Jordan Poole could do the same thing.
man, Rel, for the most part, I am there with you. The Warriors, they thought they had exiled, Jordan Poole. But as far as what he's going to be able to do statistically, it's going to be somewhat of a resurrection for him in Washington. He might not be the most efficient player. He's into the Clips 45%, shooting from the field. And I don't expect that to go above 45 in Washington just because he's going to be able to chuck up so many shots. I mean, Rel, like you said, he has the opportunity. Other than Kyle Kuzma, I mean, who else is really a threat to score with the ball in their hands? And so he definitely has a point to prove, especially towards a Draymond Green. I mean, I know there's still a lot of tension there between those two. And so, again, efficiency might not be on the side. But as far as playoffs, he doesn't have to worry about that in Washington. So what we saw in the playoffs last year, I mean, Washington won't be anywhere near, competing for a playoff spot. So he can just focus on the regular season, do his thing in the regular season like he's always been doing, at least in the last couple of years. Definitely a guy that I like, and I think he can outperform his ADP.
This Washington Wizards team is expected to win 24.5 games. Do you guys like the over or the under?
Oh, man. I think that number sounds just about right. It's a very low number, but I don't really have very much reason to go with the over just because there are some other teams in the East. I'm looking at the Pistons. Cade Cunningham was injured last year, and he missed all of last year, most of last year. And so I think that's a team that's going to be on a rise. Let me go with the under.
I am. Who do I think? I don't think Charlotte's going to be any better. I don't think Indiana's going to be that much better. Defensively, this team is going to be so bad on defense. Yeah, I think I'm going to go under. But it's going to be some fun games. Like I think they're going to cover a bunch of games. They're just not going to win outright.
Yeah,
it sounds like it's going to be fun games for gamblers and not fun games for fans of the team. But let's move on to the Charlotte Hornets, who are expected to win 31.5. What do you guys make of this Charlotte Hornets team?
I think they're fun to watch. I think they're definitely a great league pass team. To my knowledge, LaMelo did miss a lot of time last year, and so if you had to ask me if I'm going to over or under here, I like the over. We don't know what's going on with Miles Bridges. I think something had recently come up a couple of weeks ago. I don't know if you guys heard about that, but for the time being, he is slated to play, right? I think, hopefully, maybe. But there are some talent. There is some talent on this team. I like Brandon Miller. Again, he's a player I like more in real life than I do like in fantasy. Gordon Hayward is still there. Mark Williams at center. LaMelo does have a rim roller, a guy that could kind of set screens for him, run that pick and roll action. But yeah, outside of LaMelo, I'm not really too sure if any other guy is fantasy relevant. Let's say Miles Bridges and his whole status is cleared up. He's definitely a guy that I would target in the later rounds. He's had seasons averaging close to 20, if not 20, in the league. But LaMelo is really the only fantasy relevant guy on this team.
Well, let's talk about LaMelo Ball. Terrell, what do you think of LaMelo Ball, and where do you think of his average ADP?
Yeah, I mean, he's clearly one of the top guards, and I think that it depends on your outlook of LaMelo, of where you take him. Some people don't like LaMelo, and they don't think that LaMelo is good. But what LaMelo's going to do is he's going to score, he's going to get assists, he's going to get rebounds, and that's everything that you want. He's going to stack triple doubles. He's going to have so much usage in his offense. He's always going to have the ball in his hand. The real concern is availability. Yeah. And is he going to be healthy? Is he going to be here for the whole season? I think that if you take that out of it, he's clear cut, a first round pick, not even questioning. And I mean, he's still a first rounder. I think he's a first rounder in most leagues. He might be a second rounder. But I think that, it's no question if it wasn't the injury piece. I'm going to just say that he kind of got over the injury bad luck, and now he can get a full healthy season. He has, Brandon Miller, another option. And we'll see what they do with the rest of this roster. But, yeah, I think LaMelo Ball is still locked and loaded, probably one of the best guards that you can take in fantasy this year.
My bad, real quick, before we move on, I completely disrespected him. But Terry Rozier, man, how can I forget about Scary Terry, the OG Scary Terry? He's definitely still a threat. I just feel like, I don't know, maybe he gets traded at some points. I don't know how long he's going to last on his team. Maybe that's one of the reasons why I didn't bring him up. But I did have to bring up his name out of respect.
Steezy putting some respect on his name. We can
Got
move
to.
on forward to the Orlando Magic, who are expected to win 36.5 games. What do you guys like that over in the under, or where are you leaning for the Orlando Magic?
For the Magic,
Ah,
I think that I'm leaning over, and it's because I'm buying into Jamal Mosley as a head coach. There was a lot of times with this Orlando Magic team, and if you looked at them, what they did at the end of the season last year, they really caught fire and started to win a bunch of basketball games. Now, you could sit here and say, what was the motivation for some of the other teams? But there was multiple teams in there that were fighting for playoff spots that the not Miami, but the Orlando Magic were able to go out there and get wins against. And so I think this team is going to be playing a little bit better with Paolo Banchero another year in the league. Franz Wagner is pretty solid, big for them. Wendell Carter, like they have the size, they have the talent. It's just really a lot of injuries that have been biting them. But I think that Jamal Mosley is getting these guys to play and play for each other. So yeah, give me the over 36.5. I think Orlando could be in it for the play-in this year.
hey, I'd like to echo those very sentiments that you just made, Terrell. I think with Orlando, they have a lot of potential. They won 34 games last year, and that was with a rookie, Paolo Banchero, and he missed a lot of time as well. I think he missed 20 plus games, and so let's assume that he plays 65 to 70 this year. I mean, he alone increases that Magic win total, but I'd say at least he's worth what 5-6 wins, right? And there's still continued development from all these guys. They did draft an Anthony Black. Again, better in real life than he is going to be in fantasy this year. Markelle Fultz has been a revelation. I understand he's not what you wanted out of a number one overall pick, but I think he's kind of revived his career in Orlando. Kind of does everything else but score, and especially defensively, I like what he brings to the table. Wendell Carter, a very solid center. Jonathan Isaac, if he could ever stay healthy, if he could put it together, because right now he is healthy, I mean, I think he could be a potential X factor for this team, and I can see them competing for a play-in as well. If not, a 7th, 8th, maybe even as high as a 6th seed in the East.
That brings me to Paolo Banchero. He is being drafted average 67th in most leagues. So, do you think that's a good ADP for him, or would you draft him higher or lower?
So,
Yeah, go ahead,
my bad,
Steezy.
bro. My bad. I think that's a value for Paolo Banchero. I mean, we saw what he did in his rookie year: 20, and then what was it? 7, 8 rebounds, 3, 4 assists, and that was in his rookie year. Like he already looked like a seasoned veteran. He spent a lot of time with Team USA this year, and obviously as a guy from Seattle, I know what he brings to the table, man. That man, he is a hooper. I think he could. I could see him averaging 25 this year. A very much improved team around him, and then Red, like you said, a Franz Wagner, a very solid wing, does a little bit of everything. So I think he has the pieces in place. He has a team that's young and is hungry. He's coming off a Team USA experience and a summer. Man, I think that's a value. I would draft him there just because I am getting the value. But if I was in a league in which a bunch of other people kind of look at him as a sleeper, I'd be okay with taking him earlier.
Yeah, Paolo Banchero had a really, really good rookie year, as Steezy alluded to earlier. 20 points per game in that season. He had 7 rebounds, 3.7 assists.
There you go.
He's 6'10", and I think that the thing that gets overlooked is how much double-double potential that Paolo Banchero really does have. And I think that's the X factor that really makes him jump up in fantasy for me. The fact that he could be a so much better rebounder this year with, at least things opening up, because you look at that roster and the lineups that they were throwing out there last year. You had Wendell Carter, you had Bol going out there, you were throwing out the Wagner brothers, you had a lot of size in that lineup last year, and now things have come back down.
And I think we lost Terrell. So let's move on, Steezy, to the Atlanta Hawks, who are expected to win 42.5 games, but we obviously
and you're going to be seeing a lot more Anthony Black.
Have him back now.
You there,
Am I back? Oh, I guess I'm back.
Sorry.
All right.
You're back.
Either way, Banchero, I think he's going to the rebounding on 20 points per game in his rookie year. I think he's an absolute really, really good option that you can get late.
All right, perfect. So as I was saying before, so rudely interrupted, we we move on to the
Yeah.
Atlanta Hawks. What do you guys think about? What do you guys expect from Trae Young this season? Because it's going to be, he's really sort of fallen off a bit. I mean, he still puts up points, but where do you see his season this year?
Man, I don't see a lot of drastic changes to his game. I mean, he kind of is who he is at this point in his career, and that's excuse me, a great player in this league. And as far as what he's going to be able to do come playoff time, or how as far as how deep he could take this team in the playoffs, that I really don't know. But statistically, he's kind of been the same player since coming into the league, or at least since he blossomed into an all-star. DeJounte Murray is still there to kind of take away, I guess, usage at the point guard spot, but defensively, he's always going to be a liability. And so he's still a fringe, first rounder, going at the top of the second round for me. But as far as anything different than what we've seen in the last couple of years, I just don't really have any reason to believe that we're going to see something different.
Trae Young's average draft position is in the 15th pick. Do you think that's too high, too low? What do you think?
No, I think that's perfect. I mean, he is still a guy that's capable of putting up 30 on any given night, 10 assists any given night. He's going to chuck up a lot of threes. He's not the most efficient when it comes to that, but because he is, the guy that's going to attempt the most shots, he's going to score the most points. And so I think that's perfect. But again, as far as seeing something different, I don't really see that in the cards.
Terrell, you have any thoughts on Trae Young?
Yeah, I don't think it's anything different, but I think he's still gonna be good. Like I think he's gonna be the same Trae Young. He's gonna rack up a bunch of assists. He's gonna score a bunch of points. And you just hope that, this is the year that he continues to put together and he stays healthy. That's really the major thing. Like he's had that shoulder issue. He's had a whole bunch of nagging injuries that have just kind of taken him out of the lineup. And so Trae Young, I think that is really just a matter of health.
Okay, let's move on. What do you guys think about I can't say his name.
DeJounte Murray.
Thank you. DeJounte Murray. Thank you.
Yeah, so DeJounte is that triple-double machine, man. And that's really what you're hoping for from him. You're hoping that he continues to fill up the stat sheet. You know that he can even still put up assists with Trae Young in the lineup. Like he still does pretty all right for the assists. He does pretty solid rebound in the basketball as well. He flies everywhere. He's active defensively and gets a bunch of steals and is really has active hands on the defensive end. So DeJounte is definitely a guard that I personally have been looking at targeting in this Atlanta. If I had to target somebody, I'm probably targeting DeJounte Murray just because I think that he's doing a lot more than just adding the scoring, and he can only get better in this offense. And there's a question mark of how long is Trae Young going to be around? Honestly, we see trades happening in the NBA all the time. Is Trae Young going to be here for long? If he's gone, DeJounte Murray's stock is going to go up after the trade deadline.
Yeah, I think with the DeJounte Murray, I mean, I do want to give him a shout out from Seattle, another Seattle baby. So shout out, baby boy. But yeah, I mean, to kind of echo what Terrell was saying, he's just a great all-around player. Defensively, he's a menace. He is a triple-double threat. He is still racking up the stats. His usage is still pretty high, even alongside a Trae Young. I know this is going to be a high-octane offense that's going to push the pace, and so there's enough for both of these guys to eat. But Rail, I think you make a great point. Let's say Atlanta is struggling, and there's a team that's looking for a star come the trade deadline, and let's say Atlanta just decides to blow it up. Yeah, his stock is all the way high. I mean, DeJounte Murray is already pretty high alongside of Trae Young. And so imagine what's going to happen if Trae Young does get traded. Now, would I put money on that to happen? No, but it is a very distinct possibility. But as far as where he's going in drafts, I think it's perfect. Yeah, he's just a great all-around player. I love me some baby boy.
You guys think that Trae Young is this generation's James Harden? Do you think how do you like that comparison?
I don't even think I could go there. I think that'd be disrespectful to a James Harden because James Harden was winning scoring titles, was winning MVPs, should have won more MVPs, and was taking his team on deep playoff runs. Trae Young has had one deep playoff run, as far as I can remember. Doesn't have any scoring titles, doesn't have any MVPs, doesn't have the same sort of game. I wouldn't go there, but I could see some of the logic behind that, but I think it's a little disrespectful.
Terrell, any thoughts? I think we lost Terrell. Okay. No wonder he had dead eyes for a second. I was like, man, he was really insulted by
Is
this
he on?
question. I think we lost it, Terrell, so we'll get him back. Let's move on. What are your thoughts about DeAndre Hunter on this Hawks team?
Man, again, I'm a broken record already, but he's more valuable in real life than he is in fantasy just because of what he brings to the table as a 3-and-D defender. He can guard pretty much positions 1 through 4. He can hit the 3 ball, but as far as what he's going to be able to do in fantasy, there's just not a lot of usage. He's not going to have very many opportunities with Trae Young and DeJounte Murray kind of dominating the ball. So he's going to be like an off-the-ball type of threat, catch and shoot threes, maybe putbacks every now and then, but you're just not really going to run your offense through a DeAndre Hunter. He's shown and he's had flashes in the times in which those two have missed games, but you just can't really rely on him in fantasy. He's more of a bench piece. But yeah, again, another player I like more in real life than I do in fantasy.
So what do you think about this over and under 24.5 for the Atlanta Hawks?
Is that the over and under for the win total?
I'm sorry. What did I say? I meant 42.5. Did I say 24?
Oh, okay. 24. I was like, whoa. Man.
Hit the over. Hit the over.
Hit the over easily. I think 42.5. Man, it's tough, but I might have to roll with the under because like I talked about earlier, there's a lot of teams in the East that kind of finished in the bottom that I think are on the rise, that I think have a lot of potential. And with the Atlanta Hawks, while they have a great 1-2 punch in a DeJounte Murray and a Trae Young, I think this team's ceiling is limited, and they've been kind of going backwards in the last couple of seasons. Give me the under here.
Fair enough. So let's move on to the most emotional team in the NBA, the Miami Heat. What did you think about Jimmy Butler's haircut? I got to ask you because I don't know if you've ever commented on it yet.
So allow me to preface by saying that I'm a Miami Heat fan. So I root for the Heat. I love the Heat. Obviously, we don't have our Seattle Supersonics here yet, and so that's why I roll with the Miami Heat. But coming from a Miami Heat fan, I hated it. I just absolutely hated it. Like oh my gosh. But I was just like, yo, Jimmy, what are you doing? Like for me, I guess I'm a little more upset because we didn't get a Damian Lillard, and I understand you want to inject, a little bit of fun, into the atmosphere, and so maybe he had good intentions. But if I'm Jimmy Butler and if I'm the Miami Heat, I'm disappointed. I'm disappointed I didn't land a Bradley Beal. I didn't land a Damian Lillard. And yeah, maybe you have more belief in a Tyler Hero than the consensus. But in this league, you can't afford to remain idle. And that's what I feel like Miami really did this offseason. There was all this talk about getting this star, that star. Oh, we're one piece away. They're one piece away. And your biggest addition, no disrespect, but you brought back a Josh Richardson and you signed a Thomas Bryant. That's not going to move the needle. And like I've been saying, this Eastern Conference is only going to get better. Those teams in the bottom that are young, those teams are hungry, those teams are going to compete, those teams are healthy, and they're going to climb up the standings. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that Miami's going to miss the playoffs. I'm not going to sit here and say that Miami's still not a contender out east. But going back to what Jimmy was, or going back to our conversation about Jimmy, to me, it's just like he was too casual and just too relaxed about the offseason that we had. There's just so much movement around the NBA, and for him to kind of come in like that, yeah, he's going to do his thing. He's going to ball out, but it just seems like to me, I don't know. He's not really taking it very serious. And I could be wrong, obviously, but I didn't like it. I wasn't a big fan of it.
You heard it here first. Steezy is not going to perm his hair. In Jimmy Butler.
Well, fun fact, I actually did when I was in high school. But we don't have to go into it any further.
We'll post those pictures on social media side by side.
Those are horrible. Oh man.
So what do you think about this team? They're expected to win 44.5 this year. Do you think they hit the over or the under?
Oh man. I'll just roll with the over just because I still have a lot of respect for this team, and especially for Eric Spoelstra, who I believe if he's not the best head coach in basketball, he's top 2, top 3. I mean, consistently and constantly, this team overachieves, given the pieces that they have. And so I'm going to roll with the over, but as far as their ceiling and potential in the East, I don't see another finals appearance. I don't even see another conference finals appearance. But then again, we're talking fantasy basketball, and that only entails regular season, not the postseason. So I don't have to touch on that too much. But yeah, I still like the Heat, just not as contenders this year.
Bro, what do you think about the over and the under, which is 44.5 for the Heat?
I feel like this just kind of gets into this season. We kind of look at this team and say, well, it doesn't look like they got it this year, and they find a way to continue to get the wins. And it's just this Heat culture in this team, and they, even when they have outs, they still figure it out. And so if this is a healthy year, they could find a way to be good again. Like, I have to say over. I'm going to lean over here. I think that there's really the injuries is the portion that makes me feel like they're not going to win a bunch of games. And so I think that this team is gritty enough that when they play those tough games against the Celtics, against the Bucks, against the 76ers, they're going to come with a toughness of like, hey, we are not just laying down for this team. So I'm going to go with the over on this Miami Heat team. I think that they're going to win a lot more of these games than people give them credit for.
Are there any players you'd like to highlight, Terrell, on the Heat other than Jimmy Butler?
Yeah, Tyler Hero. I think Tyler Hero is going to be able to score the basketball, and he's essentially playing for his next location. He knows that his name has been in the trade rumors for a while, and this Heat team wants to get better, and they feel like they can't get better with him. I think this is a chip on his shoulder, and he says, hey, I'm going to go out here and show you can win with me, and if you can't, it's fine. I'm going to just audition for my next team.
Well, I want to talk about Bam Adebayo because last year he had his first year averaging north of 20 points per game, and I just think he's one of the best all-around centers in the league. Period. What he brings to the table as a passer, I think he's a top 5 passer at the center position. I think when it comes to his defense and what he's able to do, I mean, he can guard positions 1 through 5. He's a perennial defensive player of the year candidate, and I just think as far as fantasy, man, Jimmy Butler's probably a good bet to miss some games in the regular season, and so I think Bam Adebayo. We could see a few just dominant performances this season. I absolutely love him in fantasy. If you guys remember, I did take him, wasn't in the 3rd round in our NBA draft show or live draft the other day. And so I didn't do that just because I'm a Miami Heat fan. I did that because I do believe in his game, his all-around game. And I wouldn't be surprised if we were to see a career year out of a Bam.
Terrell, do you have any thoughts on Bam?
Yeah, I think Bam is going to be all right. I mean, I think he's going to be okay. Is at this point, I feel like I know what production I get out of Bam. But however, I personally have a vendetta against Bam because whenever I take over on Bam's props, he always.
All right. Well, Terrell has very strong thoughts. So strong they broke the internet. We had to censor him, couldn't handle it. So I think that will wrap up our Southeast Division preview.
I hope he does.
He's still talking, but still glitching through. Guys, thank you so much for listening to the Fantasy Fire and Ice podcast. Please go to sportstopia.io for all the articles on NBA fantasy basketball and NFL basketball. Steezy writes plenty of articles. Steezy, do you have anything coming up this week?
Yeah, so later today, and this is on the NFL side of things, so NBA fans, you guys can kind of tune out if you want. I do have my weekly bargain bin column coming later today on the Sportstopia website. So for all you guys out there at sportstopia.io, not sportstopia.com, but sportstopia.io. And then come this Friday, I do have my fantasy DFS phase article coming as well. Those come every Wednesday and every Friday. So don't forget to check us out at the sportstopia.io website.
And if you see this QR code in the bottom left corner, that is the Fantasy Sports Logic Optimizer. It helps plenty of people win Millie Makers. It's helped the owner, Darryl Snyder, win a couple. And it's definitely a helpful tool. So click that, scan it, and it'll help you. You can have a 7-day test drive for $1. And we are out.